This is the meeting of the North Hudson Public Works Committee. This meeting has been properly noticed. The roll call will indicate that all three supervisors and committee members are present, trustees are present. And we also have our village engineer and our public works supervisor. We did not meet in December, but we do have minutes from our meeting in November. If you have a chance to review those, Chair would entertain a motion.
I've read the minutes from November, and I make a motion to approve the minutes from 15 November 2011.
Moved and seconded to approve the minutes from our November meeting. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign, and that carries. Shopyards Capital Project. So I assume that this means that there is some movement. Mr. Public Works Supervisor?
Basically, by talking to Dan Barber, right now, tentatively, there's nothing set. They were, at the beginning, well, basically at the end of last year, they were dealing with someone that was looking for some warehouse property and everything else. That fell through, but like Dan's telling us, they never know when somebody else is gonna be coming to them, so. Basically, when I met with the village president and village administrator, they thought that this committee should be looking into this. That way, we're not holding up if other, we're not holding up property owners down in that if there is something that goes on because of our infrastructure not being adequate for fire and sewer.
What are we holding up? We don't have enough capacity for fire protection?
There's not enough capacity on the fire protection. Basically, there's not enough water pressure. That a large warehouse like they're talking down there would be required to be sprinklered under state code. Right now, our mains cannot adequately supply the water suppression that we needed for that building.
If I recall our conversation when this came up last time, we had a consensus among the members that while we recognize that we don't have the capacity until there's something specific that we're looking at, it's difficult to conceive of spending the money for something that may occur in the future.
I don't disagree, and I echoed that sentiment last year. I do think it's, should give it consideration if these are rentable buildings and if that our taxes are being paid on at a rate that I'm assuming includes acceptable water pressure. If we can assume that proposition, that if they can't rent them because there isn't adequate water pressure, then are we kind of being negligent?
We could be, I would not disagree with you if that is the case, and I want to test that. I thought the issue was if there is a new building to replace the one that burned down, we do not have adequately sized lines for that building. Does it also impact the existing buildings that are there now?
Correct, because even if you would, as you've seen during when we had the large warehouse fire down there a couple of years ago and everything else, and talking to the fire chief, which he will be sending me fire flows from what we did back in the mid-90s, the last time they were done in that area. It is scheduled to have them redone again, but basically what he's saying is there is not enough fire suppression in that area. If there would be any of those buildings would start on fire, basically we'd be back to the same thing we had with the warehouse fire.
So do we have a number? I mean, is there some kind of ballpark number out there? I mean, this looks, that's a lot of pipe, a lot of water.
Yeah, I
Kevin, you get a ballpark or something for us? I mean, that's.
so what we did is try to look at a two-phase approach project. First phase being if the building was to be rebuilt, what would it take just to supply them enough water for their fire suppression? And that would be phase one. Looking at upsizing the water main that's currently there, along with adding in the 10-inch main to the east for looping purposes. And that cost for that work is estimated to be About $105,000 for those upgrades.
But in terms of what is there and what is not there, it looks like the phasing is really the reverse. We've got buildings right now that I'm hearing do not have adequate fire suppression, and a potential new building that would be in the future.
Right.
So if we're looking at whether or not the existing buildings ought to have upgrade so that they've got the adequate fire suppression, it would seem that that would be the more current issue than a building that may be built at some point, some undetermined point in the future.
Yeah. Well, under that scenario, then yes, you would have to look at doing the whole
By that-
phase one and phase two.
But you accommodating a rebuild there, you'd probably have to include in your plans, because you're just talking basically different a sizing difference for the pipe. You're still gonna be doing the same amount of work, it's just gonna be a different size pipe through there.
Right. So, if you're looking at doing both phases, that estimated cost is just under $400,000.
You mean to get, it was 100,000 to get the adequate water pressure down to that, the far,
He's talking, first phase is from this line south,
Yeah,
this loop.
because when you go into,
that
whole
that was-
thing is
that was
this.
100,000.
Correct.
Oh, okay, I was wondering. Okay,
Yeah.
I got you.
Yep.
Yep, I-
'Cause when
I
you get up on-
misunderstood.
up on the north
Yep.
end, you're
Yep.
losing the roadway.
Yeah, oh, yeah, no, I get that.
And phase one then would dead end, it would not loop, and ultimately, the best plan is to have it loop, is that what you're saying?
Correct. Yep.
Phase one does loop, because it would actually go, it would loop from, Third Street, which is on the south end, and then it would hook in with Monroe Street, coming in from Monroe Street, that would loop together. So it would go back to Monroe. You have that orange line.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the
That's
one-
that's water main coming in off of Monroe, that's already stubbed in at the intersection. Then you come off Third Street, where there's also, where the current main is, you'd be replacing that, and they would hook together, so you would have a loop there, but then with the whole project, you would also have a loop at the very end. to
The
really
loop
increase
that would hook in at Monroe Street, hypothetically, if phase one would be done the way you have it outlined then, and the loop would be the orange line,
Correct.
at some point in the future, if phase two is completed and it loops in up at the other end, does the orange line then become abandoned or
No.
obsolete, or
No.
what happens
No.
to that?
That would stay in place.
You wanna keep it just
Yep.
maximum fire flow, you want it to come from as many different directions as it can.
Yeah, and that's a bigger size pipe too.
Yep.
That's the 10-inch main. That's basically a direct route to the water tower. I believe there's been some history with the sanitary sewer too. It is fairly shallow. It does freeze up in the
Sanitary
winter.
sewer up at, well, actually, from about, from the end of the thing, about a third of the way down, we have to salt those manholes each year, just because of that sewer at the very end, where the existing sanitary ends, is roughly only about 30 inches deep. So basically, where the old, where that last building is, during the wintertime, well, basically, they no longer use the restrooms in that building. It's now just a warehouse for paper products, or actually for cardboard boxes. But they no longer use that restroom during the wintertime, just because the sewer freezes within that manhole that it dumps into.
So that's at that 207 building on the
Yes,
north.
the very end one, used to be the old Harvest Tech building.
Which one burned?
One that
s-
burnt is actually right where it says Phase 2.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
St. Croix Ventures. Yeah, and then as part of the Third Street improvements that we did a few years back, we actually lowered the sanitary sewer in anticipation of, getting enough depth to the north, to alleviate that issue that's so shallow.
Well, back to the existing buildings. Mark is raising a good point. Do we have any information as to the ability of any of the buildings to attract tenants currently based on inadequate fire suppression? Are we holding up business, I guess is the
Well,
question?
That's really hard to say because we don't know what kind of companies are going, or what kind of business will be going into that. Right now, the building that Milestones is in, that's the Vintage Properties. They're using roughly about half that building. The other half is currently sitting empty. There is nobody going into that.
The north buildings, are those usable?
The very north buildings is those are used, that's where St. Croix Storage is, where it shows that loading dock with the semi-trailers there. They're in both those buildings.
Warehousing and storage.
Yep. And then also the one that says St. Croix Ventures at the very end, that building 207, that's used as storage for Anderson window cardboard boxes by St. Croix Storage.
What's our assessment policy on this sort of project, Kevin?
Since this would be a replacement of existing sewer and water, there's no cost associated to the property owners. That comes out of the sinking fund that the village has set forth before.
Well,
We have a dilemma with a kind of a, to be frank, not a really an unplanned industrial district that's just taken over buildings that happen to be down there that now we need to upgrade the sewer and water for. We don't have,
yeah, it was really never planned as an industrial area.
well, not in modern terms.
I mean, long,
No,
yeah.
no, not in.
To
with
current
fi-
standards.
With fire suppression and all those sort of expectations. We have a good chunk of the property that abuts that, the park there, so we have no future development there or a way to, fact of the matter is can get taxes enough to pay for this thing. Does it warrant that sort of thing? And I'm not sure if that's a proper discussion or not, but I think part of the reason this thing was held up is because of not knowing, what was down there and investing the kind of money necessary to get it upgraded. But we have to be cautious about being, prejudicial that way because there are buildings down there paying taxes. And they're paying for sewer and water. And if they don't get it, then we're negligent.
Yeah, they're basically the warehouse structures, correct? I mean, there's not like there's a person that has an office there that,
BOH does. BOH is,
Well,
they actually do electronic
guess
boards, everything else.
well,
If
what
we
I'm trying to
could've-
figure out is if it's warehouse structure, all right, fire suppression, we've dealt with stuff like that. But, I mean, the few months out of the year, can we do insulation fixes? I don't know if there's that kind of thing. I mean, that's a lot of,
The
that's
freezing,
$500,000 or whatever.
the freezing part of it, the sewer is one thing we're talking about. The fire
Fire water,
suppression.
right.
And with the recent experience of the last big blaze down
Mhm.
there, I think to disregard it would be rather.
No, I'm not trying to disregard.
No, I know
it.
you're not,
Trying
but
to,
I'm trying to regard it as a more significant item as well.
Well, and the building that burned was primarily being used for warehouse and storage as well.
Cardboard burns
And it
hot,
had
man.
pretty flammable, and once it gets going, that's flammable stuff. Paper, cardboard,
Well, allowing this sort of activity, and I'm not saying it's bad, but the fact that we're allowing that sort of industry, it does give us an implicit obligation to provide the adequate infrastructure to support that. And I do feel a little negligent if St. Croix Ventures is attempting to utilize those buildings, and if the inadequate infrastructure is a deterrent to those being inhabited or being used, then You know, it's kinda like having a house and can't rent it out 'cause the sewer isn't working.
If I guess, just to move this along, if you want, you know, I can, before next month's meeting, I'll make sure that we have, fire flow rates that the city of Hudson has, the fire department has.
Yes, let's get accurate information about what we can supply based on what we have down there. Kevin, is there any advantages, disadvantage, or possibility of establishing a TIF district down here?
Typically with the TIF districts, what we've seen in the past, when they're created is when you have a project per se, when you have, like, St. Croix Ventures is gonna build a
They're gonna build a new
building.
building.
Yeah, to actually establish it now.
Okay,
Without-
I'm just reacquainting myself with it,
Yeah.
okay.
But that is one avenue to actually help fund some of the utility work. It's just not knowing if and when that building will be built. Because once you establish it, you have a certain time period to actually do the expenditures, along with the length of the district, how much you can gather those taxes back to the community. There's a certain limitation of number of years
Yeah.
that can be established for.
Well, Mark, let's follow up then with what you just suggested. Let's get some specific information as far as flow rates and
When I get
data
flow
that we can
rates,
look at. And
I'll meet with Kevin and we'll go over the information along with, the fire chief if necessary, and try to see what we can actually supply now and what, you know.
I think probably all three of us are pretty much in the same
Agreed.
situation. We want to support the businesses that are there, encourage other businesses to come, but none of us know where the money's at.
And I don't know, all you were sent an email today from the treasurer. I'm sure if you-
Yep, got that. Really can't talk about that. It's not on the agenda, but yep.
But she just wanted you to have the information because she thought it'd be important
Yep.
for, in case this project would move along.
A little off the map, but what would a small water tower cost to put up down there?
Depending on what size, it's usually about $2 to $3 a gallon.
They're generally pretty expensive,
Okay.
Yeah, it's not a cheap scenario.
and the ongoing maintenance.
Good point.
Well, let's get the information agenda next month as well. Which takes us right into a 5-year capital projects discussion.
Basically, because of this Shopyard capital project being on the thing, Kevin and I decided this would probably be the best time to, you know, give you some updated numbers as far as projects that are on the 5-year capital project list. Kevin, you got the numbers?
Yeah. Passed out a handout, and so basically we took the 10th Street and St. Croix Station off our list and reestablished the remaining projects. And number 1 being Lakeview Drive. See where that one has a fairly low pacer rating, has a 3. With our 2011 analysis that we did here last fall. Along with that, Pine Street, that one has slightly better rating at 5. I know we had some discussions in the past. Originally, we were looking at doing total reconstruct, sewer, water, storm sewer, curb and gutter. And under this scenario, this would be just, a reconditioning, just like what we did up on St. Croix Station. And that cost is shown under the scoping estimates on the far hand right. One of them being $68,000 for Lakeview Drive and the other one $75,000 for that work. Number 3, Shopyards. We've had discussion on that already. That cost again just under $400,000 for the sewer and the water, and then the street work that would be associated with that project. 6th Street, that's going to be more driven by the DOT as to when that would be reconstructed, since that's under their jurisdiction. You know, the sewer and water, 100% is gonna have to be funded by the village, and a certain percentage will have to be for the subsurface items, the storm sewer, the curb, sidewalk, and the roadway. There'll be a cost sharing associated with that project, and we had just shown on here, looking at doing just the planning of the sewer and water this time. And then the Wisconsin Street project, being last, if you remember, we did receive some STP funding last year just for the design portion of that. And the next round comes out for another cycle, we'll be applying for the construction portion of that also. So right now, we just have the design funds. In the future, we'll be looking to get some construction dollars. And that's a total reconstruct, and that cost is about $330,000 for that work.
Go back to Sixth Street for just a second. Would we have any input on the timing of whether or not that is done? That's obviously got a fairly high PACER rating, and if the state makes a decision to do anything about that,
Yeah.
is that totally out of our hands?
Yeah, I mean, we've had discussions before in the past with the DOT, before it was resurfaced. And, you know, there was the goal to have that reconstructed in the near future just because of the old, you know, the age of the utilities under there. But that basically didn't go anywhere. It's been discussed for quite a few years. And with it just being resurfaced, it's gonna be out in the future for quite a time. Yep, but it's gonna be all driven by the DOT.
What was the total shop yards? 4 or 4 plus the 100?
Just under 400,000 for everything.
Yeah, he's got 391.
Oh, I'm sorry.
totally.
I'm sorry, 391.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the 391 in the shop yards is all of Phase 1 and Phase 2 that we have
Yeah.
laid out here.
Okay.
Yep, that's correct, Darrell. So just, you know, more informational for you of what we have on our list.
I mean, all these the shopyard structures, those are all the original shopyard structures.
No, not all of them.
Yeah, there is one on 215, that's a
15's
fairly new.
relative.
215 is new, all right, that's why
Oh, is
that
it?
one's white and the other ones are gray
Yeah.
on my pictures here.
That building right now is sprinklered, that half of it.
It is, okay. Well, I'm just, just trying to get an idea, because I haven't been in those structures 40-some years when we used to go in there and shoot pigeons. So I'm just wondering, are they all structurally sound and inhabitable, and are they've got stuff in them all right now?
Correct. Well, except like I said, the one back half of the one building is sitting empty right now. Well, actually, there's, 2 of them that are sitting empty. That first building when you come in to shop yards off of Monroe Street, that one's currently empty at this time too.
Okay. No, it's a lot of money, and I'm just trying to, are these, are these historic preservation buildings, or,
Yeah, I
Some of them are.
yep.
yeah, we've done some,
Really?
history. No, I'm just curious as to,
For what?
Are you
Right.
serious? You say some of them are,
I believe the BOH building is.
Yep, I would believe that.
Yes.
really?
And then they put quite a bit of money. I don't know if you've been inside that building since they remodeled it.
I have not.
They did quite a bit of work inside.
which one is that, Mark?
What is that?
That's BOH. Used to be the old Jones Chemical Building.
Oh,
It's
really?
the large one that's off to the other side
The
from.
230?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's actually, they do, little,
Worked down there when it was Jones.
they do little circuit boards and everything else in there. They actually got
Anything but
equipment up there.
nice.
They have guys, they have quite a few people working in that building, just working
Mhm.
on little circuit boards, stuff like that.
And
They're having issues with
And they're all right
sewer
with
and
their-
water, and,
They're not having any problems as far as, using
They're
what they
operating,
have. What
yeah.
we're talking about is if there'd ever be a fire down there, we don't know if we can.
no. That's the same discussion we had with this new venture that wants to go in down the other end of it, but I mean, I'm just trying to, I mean, to see this kind of number and see what, or, people in the village and everything like that, it's like, all right, what can we take? But we do wanna have we wanna service the properties that are there.
Any other questions or observations on the
Discussion.
information that Kevin has handed out?
Do we, are we supposed to approve that capital project tonight?
No.
No,
Or just
no,
discussion?
no,
Okay.
this is just
Discussion only.
information, we're just talking about it.
All right. Doesn't matter anyway, it's, do what you gotta do.
Yeah, it doesn't matter anyway, we haven't got any money.
Well, we can't print it, damn it. It's another part of the government that can print it.
But speaking about money, going to number 5, review of energy audit results. Some interesting opportunities in this energy audit from Lee Schweb's. Just for the record, I would indicate that we've had a very good experience working with Lee Schweb's and Focus on Energy at the county, and he has successfully worked with our building services people in identifying a number of areas somewhat analogous to what he's got here in terms of relamping, delamping, both of those, and we've saved a fair amount at the county. And I've looked through the recommendations that he's got here and the opportunities not only for the savings in terms of energy usage, but some of the incentives that are available for the village if we do these things from Focus on Energy, and I'm quite encouraged. The part of this that I'm a little perplexed about still, and he indicates that too, is there is no apparent reason why the gas usage here at the village hall should be what it is.
Actually, we found some of that out today. We've been having problems with the furnaces in this building. Basically, it started last winter with the newer furnaces in this building. For some reason, at certain times, they would just die out. We'd have to go down there, shut the switch off, let them sit 15 minutes, turn them back on, and they'd start to work. Today, when we've been having some problem with the dampers and everything else lately for the furnaces in some of the areas. It seems like the thermostats would be telling them to do one thing, and basically they're doing the opposite. And so what we did is we had basically the contractor that put the system together, everything else, he's been in here. They got brand new circuit boards and everything else for the inside the furnaces that run both the dampers and run the furnaces themselves. They were replaced today at no cost to the village. But one thing they found out when they got these new boards in, they could not get the furnaces to run. And the reason for it, with these sensors in these new boards and everything else, they were picking up that there was too much gas flow coming into the building, into the furnaces. So they checked the old furnace that actually runs this section. They also found out that furnace was getting too much gas flow. So they went outside and checked it. And when this system was designed for this building, when we had the addition done, it was done as a low flow system. Well, right now, this system has been turned into a high flow system. We figured that happened roughly about the same time that the data shows in these, when our prices started going up. And what we're saying, the only thing that runs in this building on gas right now is these two furnaces. The only other gas that's used is only during the event that's done in the thing. We don't know what happened that it got turned up to the 2 PSI for the high flow system. We don't know why.
Excel turned it up.
It was turned up.
We didn't change anything
We
in
didn't
here.
change anything inside this building. So that's why, so right now, today, to make the thing run efficiently, all the furnaces are else, they actually put regulators on all the furnaces, so they're all running.
What does that mean if excess natural gas is flowing to the furnace? It's not being combusted and is being vented, or what? If I see a lot of extra gas coming in, I think it's burning hotter.
But they figured what it did was that's why, like they said, we've been having to go reset the furnace, because actually, if you get too much gas into these furnaces, they have an automatic thing that they shut down until we reset them.
I mean, as a
they
safety?
vent out, then they vent out the excess gas and everything else. So what it is they actually believe that with what we're doing, they help, because I met with them about this, everything else, and he goes, well, some of the stuff that we did today should help your gas problems, and these new boards should help, because now the way the old furnace was set up with the old board, well, I shouldn't say old, when the furnace was, new
Original
furnaces
board.
put in here, were set in with the circuit boards were there, they would stay on, so you'd always have a flame and everything else, so you were burning natural gas. With these new boards that are in here, these furnaces, when a certain zone.
Electronic
Electronic
ignition.
ignition.
Yep, when a certain zone gets to a certain area, it will just shut off, period. It, it'll just, the furnace will shut off until it's asked to start back up again.
Okay, so now we'll have a period of time to see if that works. On the electrical component on this, you've had a chance to look at
Yes.
this. I'm prepared, and, well, to have some discussion, but I've had a chance to look at this earlier. I'm prepared to recommend to the village board that we proceed. I mean, this, to me, seems like a slam dunk.
Which, myself, I would,
Go ahead.
I don't know which one of the ones you went for, there's like four different, for the
Which
Well, I
one?
looked at all of them.
relamping or.
I think they all make sense.
Well, myself, like, there's different options, or else myself, I'd go with the delamping of the, from the 3 to the 2 fluorescent lamps, per fixture, and then, relamp using 28-watt fluorescent bulbs instead of the 32s that we're
Okay.
currently running.
What?
So it looks like that's your biggest savings out of the 4
Okay, but
for the village hall.
where is, the recommendation is to, give me an idea, what are we talking about? Just putting in
Well, if you
light
could-
bulbs, or?
Well,
Where's the cost that we have to approve?
well, there's really no cost that we have
Well, then
to
what-
approve.
then-
It's savings and an energy rebate.
Okay, so we're talking about just
We're
doing
not
something.
talking about spending any money. We're talking about doing it.
Well,
The only
I
thing-
recommend we do it then.
The only cost really
That's-
is
Agreed.
the cost of the bulbs,
Yeah,
All right,
Yeah.
well, that's.
okay, motion, second,
Correct.
all right. Any additional discussion? If not, proceed to vote. The motion is to recommend to the village board that we proceed with the recommendations from Focus on Energy. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, carried. And you think that this would be significantly darker, you look up here, there are 3 fluorescent lights in this. When we went through the county and removed one of those, and one is now dark, there's no real appreciable difference in the candle power that you can see. I mean, obviously it's less, but it doesn't seem like less.
No,
And it's a
we've
third
done
is
that
out.
we've done it in our buildings at 3M also, and,
Yeah.
no, it's like, this is overkill.
Unless they were grow lights and we could
Any
start
reaction
something
that you've
different.
got, Kevin, to anything on this?
Oh,
Like I asked you to look this over, I mean, it just seems
Yeah.
very straightforward.
Yep.
Like I say,
Good approach.
the work that Focus on Energy and Lee does, I think is very credible, very reputable.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Good
we'll
deal,
have this
definitely.
on the
Yeah,
agenda for the village board then.
I'm
The
thrilled.
only one is when they get to the public works garage, that one there, you're talking different fixtures and everything else, actually replacing bulbs. I don't know if you want some prices on that one before you have us do anything with the garage.
Well, to me, it looks, yes, there may well be, but it's $400 annual energy savings and a rebate back from Focus on Energy of a one-time incentive, which would probably pay for the bulbs that we'd be putting in.
Yeah, well, that one you're gonna actually be putting in new
fixtures.
fixtures, because you have to remove the old fixtures and put in brand new
Little
ones.
different.
All right, before the next board meeting, why don't you get the specifics of what those fixtures would be, so that we would know, but again, I think this is pretty straightforward. Kevin, engineers report.
Oh, February Public Works first.
6.
Oh, excuse me, I already skipped that. Thank you for pointing that out, Stan. Problem with Tuesday, Mark? Is that the request to change the date of the
Basically,
meeting?
you're gonna there will be an election on the Tuesday, the 21st, so this request is actually coming from the village clerk, is to
Oh,
have
because
us
the room
move
would
to a
be in
different
use.
date.
Okay. Any problem for either of you
No,
to switch it
I-
to Wednesday?
You know, we'll switch it to Wednesday if I can make a motion for that.
Okay?
Yeah.
Moved, second?
Yep.
All in favor of changing the public works from Tuesday, the 21st, to Wednesday, 22? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign,
I'm
carried.
gonna cancel my Caribbean cruise, or my cruise in the Mediterranean.
Oh, well,
anyway,
we're crushed about that. You probably ought to stay off cruise ships right now anyway.
especially the Italian ones.
So you ain't going to ITI to do that, are you? I mean, they got a little track record issue over there right now.
Okay, you're up.
All right, was this one thing, I told Daryl about already, but, I understand that you did get the funding for the Lakeview Drive that we submitted here last fall, through the MISA program. And that was roughly about $17,000 that was allocated towards that project. And the village should receive an approval letter in March or April of this year. And you would have 5 years to
That's what I was
complete
gonna,
that
that was gonna
project.
be my question. I thought it was 5 years.
Yep, so plenty of time. That's it.
Okay.
No
Mark?
report. Nothing at this time.
Oh, that's a
Beautiful.
good brief report. And with that, our agenda is completed.
Move to
Adjourn.
adjourn, if we have to do that.
No. But it's nice to hear that.
Somebody else other than you move to adjourn? I used to do that all the time.